next guest is a critically acclaimed actor. His show is award-winning as well in the Adelaide Fringe, I believe. The show is called The Will to Be. This show sounds like a friggin' roller coaster ride, honestly, from what we've read and seen. But please welcome out.
Well, that's not good. It's alright, because it's an Italian bomb thing. So please welcome Mark Salvestro. So at least one of us remembered your name, so that's always a good.
Honestly, I remember people by their aura, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
In a good way. In a good way.
Yeah.
So,
I will remember that.
in the burn book.
Yeah.
Alright? Cancelled. So, well, welcome. Thank you for coming out. And you look so cute with your little hat. Can we just have an applause for this outfit, please? So, we're just going to go straight into it.
Right.
So, can you give us a description on the play, The Will to Be?
Sure. So The Will to Be is set in 1962, and it tells the story of a university lecturer, a junior lecturer, so he's still on probation, who is dismissed from his position because they find out about his homosexuality. That's the real short and sharp kind of.
Yeah.
What was it? Because in this play, there is Shakespearean kind of elements woven into this. What was it that attracted you to the idea of this specific story in this specific time?
Sure.
And then weaving Shakespeare in and out of this show?
Yeah, because it started with Shakespeare. Like it wasn't queer history, it wasn't the 60s or anything. Shakespeare was, it was a ego thing.
Yeah, right.
it was I wrote it 5 years ago now, and so I just come off, the year before I had come off like a short little tour of a Shakespeare show to Prague Fringe Festival, and I was like, oh my god, I'm obsessed with Shakespeare.
Yeah, right.
I just don't care about anything else, that's all I want to do. So I wanted to write a one-man show to show the world that I loved Shakespeare. So I was like, initially it was going to be set in Prague, it was going to be about alchemy and during Shakespeare's lost years, and I was like, okay, that's boring, no one wants to see that. And then so I often would go, okay, well, what is it about my own life that I want to explore more of? What am I ignoring by going down this path of obsessing over my art? And I realised it was, it was stuff to do with, I find in terms of coming out, there's always different layers, right? And so at that stage, I was like, I don't really know where I've come from. And I didn't know much about queer history. So I thought, okay, is there a way that I can merge queer history with this Shakespeare idea? And so, then I started to go, well, how do they come together, and in what? So I picked the 60s just as a time I wanted to explore, and then, what? Not that it's entirely set, but in terms of genre, it's not completely realism, but still, what would make it believable that someone can quote Shakespeare off the cuff? So I went, well, they're either an actor, a director, a writer, or some kind of educator. So that's what dropped us into the university setting. Right. And because I wanted to remove it from me in terms of being an actor-writer, that was boring. Then we kind of just ended up in a university in the 60s with Shakespeare.
So what was, if I can ask, what was the Shakespeare play that you taught with?
The Comedy of Errors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit, so then how have you framed, with Shakespeare in this play, have you woven is this a digression before me, is there like that kind of stuff in it? Or is it excerpts from a comedy of error, Yeah, lots of different plays, lots of different Shakespeare plays. Pretty much mostly tragedies and histories. I don't think there's anything from the comedies. Yeah. Oh no, there's one tiny line in that which I'm not going to say. You have to come see it and guess which comedy gets a very slight mention.
So, this play, of course, is quite creative in the sense that it is written with Shakespeare elements woven into it. So how has it shaped your creativity, having a bit of a Shakespearean element to it, but as well as telling the story of queer artists and having had gone out of your way to learn queer history for it?
Yeah, so it's, in terms of like my practice as a writer, it's really got me to play with rhyme and with, not that I write poetry, but I play with rhyme and rhythm because I hate it when you go, oh, here's the Shakespeare bit. That's not what I want at all. So I feel what I hope I do well is that it all just blends to the point that you can be halfway through an excerpt of Shakespeare and you don't realise until maybe a couple of lines in, because it's so, the excerpt I've chosen, or even that line, because there's no big long monologues within there. It's usually no more than 4 lines, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. And then it goes back and forth between my dialogue, my words and Shakespeare's. So yeah, it's finding the way they can blend together, whether that's in the topic or the rhythm, and just needing those words, whether it's mine or Shakespeare's. It doesn't matter who wrote them, but they must be needed by William, the character, in that moment, for it to not seem phony.
Yeah, right. So the Shakespeare, like what you've included then, in terms of the Shakespearean element, isn't juxtaposed to whatever's happening. It's still in the same vein, and it's almost a way for the main character to express themselves in a way that's almost like, this might sound really wanky or it might sound really stupid, but like in a way that's like not human. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
because the whole show isn't in Shakespearean. There's excerpts of Shakespearean text. So when he confronts something in him and he's like, "Fuck, this is how I'm feeling," he then goes into Shakespearean monologues or an excerpt or something like that. Like, so it's not juxtaposed. It's woven into the story as a part of the theme.
Yeah, that's it. It's I see it as a coping mechanism almost for the character.
Okay.
At least that's how I've tried to justify it, without it seeming like he's showing off or something like that. Because it's his life. He's a lecturer. He's an English lit lecturer. His world is Shakespeare, and that's how he has hidden away in terms of his sexuality, because he is a closeted gay man at the beginning of the play, and Shakespeare is where he's hidden in those worlds. And so when things become too much, he resorts back to Shakespeare until he catches himself doing that.
Yeah, right. So then this character, does he have a journey where he catches himself doing it and then he's kind of like, not anymore, I'm going to embrace who I am kind of thing? Or is that a consistent theme throughout where he retrieves into Shakespeare and then kind of comes back into the story?
Well, you're going to have to come and see the play.
Oh, sure, come see the play, folks.